What if you could see inside your body before something goes wrong? What if a machine could detect a tumour years before you'd feel a symptom or spot a heart condition before it becomes dangerous? I've just experienced two of the world's most advanced full-body scanning technologies: the Prenuvo MRI in Florida and the Neko health scan in London. Two of the companies leading the proactive healthcare revolution. Today, I'm taking you inside two fundamentally different approaches to preventative health: comprehensive internal imaging and multi-sensor external assessment. These technologies see our bodies in completely different ways, focusing on different health markers. But what exactly do they reveal? What health insights can they provide? And most importantly, could either of these technologies actually save your life? Most of us wait until something feels wrong before seeing a doctor. But what if we could flip that model on its head? That's the promise of preventative scanning, finding problems while they're still small, often years before showing symptoms or causing issues for your health. I decided to put my body on the line and try both technologies to see what they might reveal.
Today, I'm diving into something super important: being proactive about your health. I'm here at Prenuvo in Florida to have a full-body MRI scan, which helps uncover illnesses or anything going on in your body before they become serious. Prenuvo uses an advanced technology to take a comprehensive look about what's happening in our bodies, giving us insights so we can take action.
The experience felt like a very upscale medical or wellness spa appointment. After completing a health questionnaire, I was led to a changing room where I removed all my metal objects, like watches, jewellery, then all my clothes, and changed into some comfy branded scrubs.
Okay, so I am here in my scrubs, ready to have my full body MRI scan. I mean, I am feeling a bit nervous about this, but I'm thinking about the benefits of basically being proactive about my health and finding out if there is anything that I should be concerned about.
Unlike traditional medical MRIs, which typically focus on one area of concern, Prenuvo offers something different: a comprehensive scan of nearly every organ system in your body. I was fortunate enough to catch up with Prenuvo's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Dan Durand, and I asked him about Prenuvo's backstory and what their mission is.
Prenuvo comes from a clinic that was started by a physician named Dr. Raja Tarawala in Vancouver. And he operated that clinic from the late 2000s until the late 2010s, when he came into contact with a patient named Andrew Lacey, who's my boss, and they founded Prenuvo together. And Prenuvo, the name comes from a patient that Dr. Tarawala knew personally by the name of Renu, who had died at age 36 after being diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, which is not, an unusual situation, unfortunately. And it's named in honor of her, but it's kind of her as a representative, I would say, for all the people in all of our lives. Everybody has someone in their life that kind of fits that description, that died too young of something that maybe we screen for later on. As in the case of colon cancer, we do eventually screen for this according to standard guidelines, but usually not that early unless there's some reason that's known. And something like around 10% of cancers are genetically determined, meaning we have a good sense in conventional medicine to look for them. So the majority aren't. And we all know someone who has passed away earlier. And unfortunately, we all know more and more people, because the millennial generation in particular is having an epidemic, scary epidemic, very poorly understood, of early cancer diagnoses. So it's named for Renu, but really it's named for all of us.
Unlike X-rays or CT scans, MRI technology uses powerful magnets and radio waves rather than radiation. When you lie in the machine, hydrogen atoms in your body temporarily align with the magnetic field. Radio frequency pulses then cause these atoms to produce signals that are used to create detailed cross-sectional images. But what exactly is Prenuvo looking for? The list is extensive: early-stage cancers, aneurysms, fatty liver disease, heart abnormalities, spine and joint problems, and much more. The level of detail is remarkable, potentially catching issues years before they might become symptomatic. The scan produced over 2,000 detailed images of virtually everything inside me, from my brain to my pelvis, as Dr. Durand explains.
Any disease that has a soft tissue manifestation, so any disease that impacts tissues other than certain like parts of your bone, or maybe your heart or lung, which have slightly decreased resolution because they're beating and moving on an MRI. But most tissues in your body, MRI is the best way to see them, like all the soft tissues, the muscles, the organs. And so anything that causes a change in those will eventually be detected by MRI. Some conditions will be detected earlier than others. The things that we see the most are things like spinal degeneration that happen to everyone that are arguably more aging related. You could say that happens to everybody, so it's not a quote unquote disease. And I think that's fair. The types of things that are certainly pathology that we see the most are things like fatty liver infiltration. So this is part of a syndrome of metabolic derangement that impacts almost 30% of the population. And these are folks who are going to have a higher chance of lapsing into diabetes and may already have it, as well as the other hallmarks of metabolic syndrome, which include like neurodegenerative disease and heart attacks, etc. So the fatty liver infiltration is often a harbinger. It can also progress on its own to things like cirrhosis, although it does that rarely, but it can. So it's an important thing for people to know about medically, and it's often, when they learn it at Prenuvo, kind of a rallying point for them that yes, they probably knew they were a bit overweight, or they knew they could be dieting a little bit, their diet could be healthier. But typically these people are saying to themselves something like, yes, I can control my weight better, but that's about vanity, perhaps, or I could always look better. But when you tell them it's their organs and that it's going to limit their lifespan, and you're seeing inside them and telling them that, you get a very, very different level of engagement. And this is something that people who don't practice whole body MRI don't understand. We could talk about it later, but the level of engagement when you can show people pathology on the inside of their body is different than when they can see changes on the outside. The other types of things we see are masses that may be cancer, right? Now, pretty much everyone's going to have a benign mass of one type or another. Just like when you look over your body on the outside, there's plenty of little dots and blotches and moles and things like that you've seen them, you're not worried about them, they're not going anywhere. When we look on the inside of the body, we're going to see a lot of that too. And we will typically say it's super low risk if it looks super low risk. Sometimes we'll say, get another a type of exam, like a diagnostic scan, to confirm it's low risk. Rarely will we say it's very suspicious, but that is about 4% of the time we'll find a very or highly suspicious mass. And a subset of those will get biopsied. And we tend to find cancer depending on the location, the part of the world that we're scanning in and the age group that goes, but anywhere from like 1% of the time to 2.2% of the time. Our biggest study that we published so far had a 2.2% cancer incidence, and that was done in Vancouver. So masses are aneurysms are very important. We find those in about 2 to 3% of people. Less than 1%, though, have an aneurysm that's large enough that it needs, let's say, intervention anytime soon. But all of them with aneurysms, all of us, right, with aneurysms, should have these things followed because they can enlarge, and once they enlarge, then the recommendations change as they get bigger. That's one, and the velocity of getting bigger. That's one that you want to see. Let's say a neurosurgeon about if it's in your brain, or cardiothoracic or vascular surgeon about if it's in your aorta, which is the most common places that we find those. So those three conditions are exemplary in terms of they're very different from each other, and they're of different severities, right? Like one needs action pretty quickly, the mass. The other one is a lifelong thing, but still pretty serious, the aneurysm. The other is not very serious, but actually very prevalent and quite important, and can sometimes be serious in the fatty liver. Many other conditions, I could go on forever, because again, anything that changes your soft tissues in your body, and even just cancer, well, there are people don't realize it. I mean, we know about the 10 most common types of cancer, but there are hundreds of types of cancers. I mean, if you go into the subclassification. So when we say we can detect over 500 conditions, it's probably a vast underestimate in terms of the types of pathology that are out there. I would say most pathology is eventually evident on MRI. And typically it's before there are symptoms that can be detected externally.
As you can see, I felt a bit nervous before the scan. I'd heard stories about claustrophobia in these machines, and I'd never done anything like this before. The technician assured me that we'd be able to talk to each other the entire time, and I'd have an emergency button if I needed to stop. The machine was loud, making various buzzing, knocking, and humming sounds as it captured images from different angles. However, I had headphones on and a screen playing my Netflix show of choice, which distracted me enough to allow me to relax. But it was still a strange experience being enclosed in this tube for an hour. So whilst the whole process wasn't painful at all, it was definitely an exercise in patience and stillness. But I took some footage of myself as soon as I finished the scan, and it captures exactly how I felt at the time.
So I've just come back from my full body MRI scan. Oh my goodness. It was actually quite fun. I watched Emily in Paris. So much better than I was expecting. I didn't feel claustrophobic at all. Totally relaxed. Okay, I'm going to caveat this by saying the girl did tell me here that this is not your typical necessarily MRI experience. Like what I was lying on was really comfortable and padded. And the actual machine didn't feel too low at all. So I think this was the reason I chose Prenuvo, was because I had read that their machines were a little bigger than others. But yeah, it was actually a fantastic experience. I feel very relaxed, and I definitely would have no hesitation doing this again. Oh, and I see on the wall, they have a thing to show that I can be like, oh, I scanned 2024.
Surprisingly, perhaps the most nerve-wracking part was waiting for the results. Speaking with friends and frequently hearing phrases like, I wouldn't want to know if something was wrong with me, ignorance is bliss, or when it's our time, it's our time. I have to admit my initial enthusiasm for wanting to find out if all was okay was somewhat replaced by a shit, what if there's actually something wrong with me? So when my results were ready and I found out everything was okay, a real sense of relief washed over me and made me realize how anxious I'd been. I asked Dr. Durand what he would say to anybody who was nervous about taking a scan.
The whole design of the Prenuvo experience is made so that people want to come back to it. And as I mentioned before, there's no radiation. That can certainly make people anxious, particularly if they don't understand the level of risk. Having a needle put in you or having contrast injected into you, even though that is usually fine, it can produce anxiety for sure. So the fact that we are totally non-invasive and that people are healthy when they come to us. So when you come to Prenuvo, you have to fast for 4 hours, but most people can handle that. And it's usually a nice experience. You come in, it's not super crowded. You contrast this with going in what we call the sick care system, but the regular healthcare system, you go in, you have symptoms, you're seated next to a lot of other people. It's not the best day of their week or month either, right? It's kind of stressful. It's high volume. You're kind of squeezed through the system. They want to know if you can pay right up front with your insurance, right? There's a lot that is in that experience that makes you maybe not want to go back. And one of our theories is that these kind of necessarily stressful exacerbations of health that we have in the acute care system, they kind of bias against wanting to get care at all. It's like, well, I don't want to even touch that hospital building because I don't want to get sucked back in. I don't want them to find something and suck me into that whole cascade of care that I found uncomfortable before. And what we're saying is, okay, we don't want you to be sick, but if you don't engage when you're healthy, then you're not going to get the data, you're not going to make the right decisions, and you're not going to intervene in advance and seek help when you should. So we're trying to create a spa-like atmosphere. It's kind of more modeled after med spas, but we're not just, we're not doing and there's nothing wrong with aesthetic procedures or anything, but we're not doing that type of stuff. We're not doing spa stuff in here. We're doing like diagnostic medicine. And we're doing it in a way that really feels non-medical, and the patient's there quickly, they get quick access, and then we explain it to them in their own language. The last thing I'll mention is while they're in the center, they're going to have to get in that scanner, and that can be anxiety provoking because it's a slightly enclosed space. Our claustrophobia out rates, meaning the rate at which people go into the scanner and they say, this is too tight, I can't get through, they're 1% or less, and that is much lower than I'm familiar with from literature in general, and certainly for whole body, because we're in there for longer. So usually you have higher rates of claustrophobia. So why is it better at Prenuvo? Number one, I think that whole experience and the level of control the patient has, like it's not a rushed experience. Number two, as they go in there, we have these wide bore machines and we have this ingenious set of mirrors that our engineers have designed, and you can actually watch TV and stream TV while you're in there. Usually there can be distractors in most MRIs or like headphones and music, but I've never seen one that has this good a TV, and you're kind of immersed in it. So by the time you get to the back of the tube where they're obtaining most of the images, you don't really feel like you're inside of it. You feel like you're a few feet outside of it because the mirrors kind of bring that image of the TV around you. It's the little things, right? It's those little experiential things that make a very, very big difference. So we have decreased anxiety the day of. And then in terms of, we're always working to communicate with our patients and have reasonable turnaround times, because there is anxiety for every medical test between when the sample is obtained or whatever, the images are obtained, to when you get that information. That can never be entirely eliminated, but we do our best there. And then when you deliver the information, we don't just throw it back at the patient. We don't just give them a report. They get a dedicated consultation with a licensed provider, either a primary care doctor or a nurse practitioner, that walks them through their results. And they also get on their app all their actual images in their hand that they can show themselves, their doctor, whoever. And they get an explanation in the US equivalent of like what we call plain English, layman's terms. These are things that you could read to anybody on the street and they're going to understand them. There's also the doctor's version in there for people that want the fancy talk, right? But I think speaking to patients on their level, in a language they're familiar with, to make their findings make sense to them, that is like the most important thing long-term for controlling any anxiety that's associated with the scan. And the last thing is we always have an open door. So if people are anxious, even after the consultation, they can email us, they can call in, like they will get connected with someone who can help put them at ease, or if it's warranted anxiety, to help them with their next steps.
Now for the question many of you are likely wondering, what does all this cost? Well, a full-body Prenuvo scan runs from around $2,300, though you could have a head and torso scan for about $800. So is it worth it? Well, it's a complicated question to answer. For some, especially those with family histories of certain conditions or specific health concerns, this level of detailed imaging could potentially be life-saving. For others, like myself, it might simply provide peace of mind or establish a baseline for future comparison. The Prenuvo experience is thorough, detailed, and offers arguably the most comprehensive internal view of your body currently available to consumers. It uses non-invasive MRI scanning, so no radiation or contrast dyes, and it's all set in a relaxed, spa-like experience. In fact, I'd say the most scary thing about the whole experience was the fact that earlier that day, an alligator had been found in somebody's swimming pool not far from the clinic.
Still keeping an eye out for alligators. Because you never know.
Next, in London, I visited Neko Health, a completely different model focused on fast, holistic health snapshots. Founded in part by Spotify co-founder Daniel Ek, I visited Neko Health during their VIP Open Day event, where I had the opportunity to go behind the scenes of this Swedish health tech startup that's been generating significant buzz in preventative healthcare. Luckily for us, co-founder and CEO Hjalmar Nilsson was there to personally give us a guided tour, and the first stop was their unique body scanners, where you stand for a 20-second full-body scan. High-res imagery plus a complete thermal profile equals your very own health avatar. High-resolution cameras map the entire skin surface looking for suspicious moles or lesions. This felt more like stepping into a photo booth or an airport security scanner than a medical device, or like I was in a sci-fi movie. The whole process is quick, painless, and has a surprisingly non-medical feel. Once that's done, the next step is to go for a lie down for cardiovascular checks, including pulse readings from 7 points, microcirculation mapping, and on-the-spot blood analysis. Want to know what that looks like? Hjalmar demonstrated this amazing technology during the open day.
The second part of the scan is you go over and you lay down on a bed. There we do a cardiovascular assessment where we measure how your heart is beating and pumping blood, and how that blood is moving through your entire arterial tree. We measure the pulse at 7 different locations throughout your body to understand its shape. And this enables us to do a much better characterization of the health of not just your heart, but your entire arterial tree. Then we check your microcirculation. These are the smallest blood vessels in your body, and we assess their capacity to supply your cells with what they need. It is believed that issues with these vessels are a common starting point for disease development. So after that part of the scan, we take a simple blood draw, where we check for essential blood tests that we process on site.
Neko provides immediate feedback through a consultation with their own on-site doctor and the summary when you leave via their digital platform. The system flags potential concerns while providing a baseline for future comparison, as Hjalmar explains.
When you meet the doctor, all of your results are already fully computed, calculated, analyzed, including the essential blood tests that we've done. So the entire session is just for you to talk with the doctor to go through all of the results. There's just a big screen with an avatar of you, with all of your health information mapped onto this avatar, and a doctor to walk you through every step of how to interpret that data.
A Neko health scan costs approximately £300, so it's very accessible at this price point. Neko focuses heavily on the technology and design experience. Everything from the scanning booth to the results interface feels more like consumer tech than traditional healthcare. I managed to have a few words with Hjalmar as I wanted to explore his views on the same question I asked Dr. Durand.
If you look at what's happening in this country, so West Reading is saying that, the future of the NHS is prevention and data, basically. So on the other hand, I think you have a lot of folks realizing that we don't get very far just continuing to fund and grow our healthcare systems, like kicking the can down the road. So I think all these three things are kind of moving in parallel. So the political will is getting there, the technology is getting there, and the doctors are trying to adapt to those changes. No, and I mean, it's an approach that's breaking with a 200-year-old tradition.
So how do these scans really compare? Well, Prenuvo dives deep, unmatched detail of internal organs, potentially catching cancers and serious conditions before symptoms appear. Think of it as your body's highest resolution interior map. Neko takes a different approach, exceptional skin mapping plus cardiovascular and metabolic metrics. The experience is faster and you get your results in real time. But these aren't competing technologies. They serve completely different health monitoring purposes. Prenuvo offers detailed internal imaging that can detect issues deep within your body. Neko focuses on external assessment, monitoring skin health, heart function, and metabolic indicators. Would both scans benefit you? Well, that depends on your specific health concerns, family history, and what you're looking to monitor. Prenuvo costs around $2,300, while Neko is approximately £300, reflecting their different technologies and focus areas. The ideal approach? Consider which health aspects you're most concerned about monitoring and consult with your doctor about which might provide the most valuable insights for your situation. So what did my experience with both technologies actually reveal? Well, my Prenuvo scan was thankfully boring, exactly what you want medically, but it focused my mind on specific improvements for my health span. The Neko scan reassured me about my skin markings and showed my cardiovascular health was solid. My biological age was a few years younger than my actual age, though my grip strength definitely needs work. These scans give me powerful baselines that traditional reactive medicine simply doesn't provide. They're detecting problems before symptoms appear, which could be life-changing for the right person. There's a psychological component too. For some, these scans provide peace of mind. For others with health anxiety, they might increase worry through false positives. The Prenuvo experience, a serious medical procedure in what felt like a 5-star hospital. Neko, stepping into the future, sci-fi guiding voice, your personal avatar, and instant data your doctor can actually explain. So what's the bottom line? Well, preventative scanning is evolving rapidly. Different approaches, same goal: catch issues before they become problems. This is healthcare shifting from reactive to proactive. Both companies predict more accessible pricing and potentially insurance coverage as adoption grows. The technology keeps improving, with AI playing an increasingly central role in analysis. The question isn't whether these technologies impress, they do, but whether they make sense for your health situation and budget. As always, talk to your doctor first. Resources for exploring preventative scanning options will be in the description below. But tell us in the comments, would you go deep with MRI or start first with a wellness scan? Download our free guide and watch their full expert interviews. But most importantly, don't forget to subscribe, because in here and out there, it's a jungle.